Hello, hello, and welcome back to our channel for what is now week 6 of the Sideline Spice Power Rankings update, courtesy of the boys at the Vault Studio. I'm Ryan, and boy, do I feel great this week. We just got another awesome week of football. The Pats got a win, the Sox are up against the Astros, and basketball is finally back. I can tell Luca has some thoughts on my choice of headwear this week, but I don't even care. I'm just excited, and I can't wait to get into it. Luca, how are you doing this week?
Firstly, Ryan, you are the reason why Boston sports fans are insufferable. That headwear is ridiculous. Get it off. Having said that, you do raise a good point. I'm feeling great. The Ravens won. The NBA is back. So for the most part, I'm good.
Awesome. So again, this week we've watched the games, we've ranked the teams, and once again we've come away with some picks of the bunch. This week bringing you 3 winners, 3 losers, an honourable mention, and a special guest appearance of Luca Loses It. As always, at the end of our video, check out the link in the description below to find our complete rankings, and please have your say. But for now, on to our biggest winner.
Firstly, I'm just excited that we've actually named me losing my temper and given it an actual segment name. But yeah, now moving on, I'm really excited for Ryan to be kicking off our biggest winner. Ryan, tell me who our biggest winner is this week.
The Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Our biggest riser, who did the impossible in this era of offense-driven football in holding the Tennessee Titans to 0 points at home this week. Say what you want about the Titans offense, but the NFL is literally working to make this harder and harder in an effort to increase the spectacle of their league. But with zero regard for TV ratings, they said, stuff that, we're doing it anyway. Sacking Mariota a near record-tying 11 times, holding the Titans to 106 yards of total offense, whilst gaining 361 of their own and only punting once, whilst holding the ball for more than 37 minutes. All in all, this has to be seen as one of the most impressive and complete defensive performances of, I don't know, the last 10 years. No question. And for that, Baltimore, you've jumped 5 places in our rankings to number 7 overall. Welcome to the top 10. Keep playing like that, and you could continue to climb up these rankings.
Also, side point, I think it makes great television watching one team struggle in front of with the whole country watching. But yeah, they were impressive. Big game against the Saints this week. Now, our second winner, the team formerly known as San Diego, is sneaking up in the NFL, having notched probably the quietest 4-2 start I can remember. However, us sideline spicers are not sleeping on the boys in blue after blowing out a Browns team that hasn't lost by more than a score all year. So, Ryan, did you know that Philip Rivers had started the year with a 15-3 touchdown to interception ratio, and he's on pace for over 4,500 yards?
I mean, I did, but for the point of this, I'll say, no, Luca, tell me more.
Well, you might, but the casual fan might not have. Melvin Gordon's got like a career best 5.1 yards per game, while being on pace to obliterate his previous best pass catching season as well. I don't actually realise any of those things without the help of my good friend Google, because, I mean, you might be paying a lot of attention to them, but for the most part, they've been doing their business quietly and under the radar. What I did know is that Derwin James, who's a guy that I had as a top 5 or 6 talent going into the draft, looks like an all-pro safety in year 1. And I also know that this team's only 2 losses that are the top 2 teams in the NFL so far this year. You want to know the scariest thing of all? They're doing this all without their best player in Joey Bosa. The Chiefs might have impressed us all big time this season, but they're still only a game ahead of a Chargers team that it's arguably the most complete roster in the NFL from top to bottom. This is going to be one hell of a division race.
Yeah, it's really heading up. It is quiet, really. Like, no, they don't get a lot of conversation. Anyway, number 3, Dallas Cowboys. 8 points at Carolina, 20 points against the Giants, 13 points at Seattle. I mean, Seattle's pretty good. 26 points against Detroit. Okay, that's getting somewhere. 16 points at Houston. 40 points against Jacksonville? Sorry, what? Dallas Cowboys. I don't understand how you've done it. After averaging 16.6 points a game against unspectacular defenses, you decide to go and drop a 40 bomb on the Jacksonville Jaguars and Jalen Ramsey. No matter how you shake it against this defense, that makes you a winner. Dak Prescott stepped up, throwing 183 yards and 2 touchdowns to 0 turnovers. Elliott played great again, rushing for 106 yards and 1 touchdown. Cole Beasley looked like a legit wide receiver number 1, catching 9 passes for 101 yards and 2 touchdowns. And your defense terrorized Bortles all night, sacking him 3 times, forcing 1 interception and holding them to barely over 200 yards of total offense and 7 points. I'm not going to make this too much about how badly the Jags played. More on that later, I'm sure. Dallas, this was about you. You had your shot and you took it. And because of that, you're our final major winner this week, rising 4 places to 23 in our rankings.
Yeah, it's well deserved. You did say that there could be an upset this week, and they did deliver on that. Our honourable mention this week is the Seattle Seahawks. So you'd think that after losing your best player to a season-ending injury and having him flip off your fans while being carted off, that your season was done and dusted. Not so fast. Seattle has quietly notched wins in 3 of their last 4 games, most recently destroying a lackluster Raiders team by the tune of 27-3. Now, despite the tongue lashing that Pete Carroll received from me last week, he's found out how to mitigate their porous offensive line. I think he said they've had a 60-40 rushing to passing split, utilising 3-headed running back tandem Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, and Mike Davis to wear teams down. Now, furthermore, they've actually gone back to what has made Russell Wilson so scary over the years, going back to running a lot of play action. So over the first 3 weeks, the Seahawks ran play action on only 16% of Russell Wilson's dropbacks, which is ludicrous when he's consistently been the league leader in passing rating in play action situations. They've gone back to making it a staple of their game plan in recent weeks, though, and they look like a different team out there. If the coaching continues to best use the pieces they have, they could actually be a sleeper wildcard team.
You can't really count out a Russell Wilson-led team. He always steps up.
Yeah, even with nothing, he can make something out of nothing.
And on to the losers. Just spoke about them briefly. Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't want to take too much away from our special guest appearance of Luca Loses It this week, but I will say this. For a team with so much ego, with so much energy for talking and trash talking other teams, other players, whatever, you really could have used some of that energy maybe at Dallas this week, don't you think? Only okay, Dak Prescott just ran rings around your vaunted pass defense, and you couldn't do anything offensively against a team that has a good defense, but has allowed points sort of all year long. You're better than losing 40-7 against any team, really. So I'm sorry, but you're our biggest loser, plummeting 7 places right out of our top 10 to number 11 in this week's rankings.
Yeah, and worst of all, I had to hear Skip Bayless boast about them all week. So the Cowboys. So shame on you, Jacksonville. Our next loser is the Tennessee Titans. Now, 2 things have impressed me most about the Titans through the first 5 weeks of the season. First was their ability to grind out tight games. They still haven't conceded more than 23 points in a game all season, and their wins over the Jaguars, Eagles, and Texans were all very impressive in different ways. Second was their vaunted offensive line. Even with early season injuries, they managed to only give up a respectable 9 sacks through the first 5 games against some vicious defensive fronts. All that went out the window against the Baltimore Ravens last week. Despite their defense holding up their end of the bargain, I have never seen a quarterback get hit as much as Marcus Mariota did last week. 11 sacks is one off the all-time NFL record, and I'm honestly marveling at the fact that he's not in hospital. Furthermore, this is
look a good game.
he looked concussed after the game. Now, furthermore, this is a performance that came at home in a week where their main division rival got obliterated by the Cowboys, as you said. Now, this Titans defense is incredibly underrated, but can you name their number 2 wide receiver for me after Corey Davis? Their vaunted thunder and lightning backfield pairing of Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis is more like mild jolt of electricity. They've been the most disappointing backfield in the NFL 6 weeks into the season. Next up, they have the Chargers at Wembley Stadium. Hopefully on the long-haul flight, their coaching staff will have plenty of time to remind their offensive unit that they are in fact meant to be professional football players.
Oh, don't get me started on Derrick Henry. Anyway, final loser, Cleveland Browns. I want to start by saying this. There is absolutely no shame in losing to this iteration of the Los Angeles Chargers. As Luca outlined earlier, this team is legit. There is something to be said, however, about the fact that this was the first game the Browns have been blown out after playing 5 straight tied games, 3 of which went to overtime, incredibly. To me, this is really about Baker Mayfield coming back down to earth a little bit. Going number 1 overall in the draft has obviously created its fair share of fanfare. But when you look right at the numbers, despite how badly some people may want it to be so, Baker still has a hell of a long way to go. He's only completed 56% of his passes. He's thrown 5 interceptions against 4 touchdowns and has a quarterback rating of 73. It's not exactly time to get out the anointing oil. This team is stacked top to bottom. And we here at Sideline Spice were perhaps a little guilty ourselves of overrating this team based on their roster and some of their performances. But because of this loss, losing 14-38 at home, it's brought them back down to earth a little bit, falling 6 spots to number 21.
Yeah, it was a game that we were too nervous to tip on our own betting sheet, and here we are seeing the Browns get blown out. I don't think any of us saw that coming. Now, my favourite part of the show, Luca Loses It. It's been renamed. It used to be just honourable mentions, but now I just get to tee off on 2 either teams or players or, 2 of anything, which have just made me mad over the last week. Now, number 1, you're going to be really happy to hear who I've picked, Ryan. You weren't actually fully aware of this. You knew it would be Jaguar related, but it's not the Jaguars. It's Jalen Ramsey in particular. So I loved him as a prospect out of college. I still think he's an incredible player. Hell, I backed him when most of my friends hated him. It was refreshing to see someone speak their mind and talk trash in a politically correct league, and he's continuously backed it up on the field. However, coming off that 40-7 savaging at the hands of a mediocre Dallas Cowboys offense, you'd think that Ramsey would take his medicine, be humble, and talk about needing to be better the next game. Yet his interview was riddled with more I don't knows than when you ask your girlfriend what she feels like for dinner. The biggest mouth in this sport all of a sudden swallowed his tongue, and he looked about as broken as Ryan's Wi-Fi. Cole Beasley is the kind of guy that when you're playing a pickup game, you kind of forget exists until you have 2 or 3 people left to choose from. Yet he made your supposed best secondary in football look like they belonged in the CFL. Part of being a pro athlete is being humble in defeat. Jalen, you showed that you're incapable of humility, instead pouting like a spoiled brat at the result. Everyone loses in football, but you handled it with 0 class, and that's why this week I've lost it at you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know you've been waiting to hear that for a while. Now, secondly, the Buffalo Bills. So when I was doing my research for this part, I actually came across a Mel Kiper video saying that Nathan Peterman was a late-round quarterback with, and I quote, Brady-esque potential. Hey, guess what, Mel? Did you know that if Tom Brady threw 1,000 straight picks, he'd still have a lower pick percentage than Peterman's, who, wait for it, has thrown an interception on 11% of his career passes. So Buffalo's pass D actually hasn't allowed a 300-yard thrower in 15 games, and they actually rank 3rd in total defense for the season. I keep telling my colleagues that this D is legitimately good. You know, the kind of D that with a solid game manager, like, say Tyrod Taylor, for example, could make this team competitive. But no, while Josh Allen is hurt, Buffalo is stuck with a bloke I wouldn't trust to throw a tennis ball accurately to my dog. Speaking of Josh Allen, we all knew he'd need a year or 2 to get up to game speed. Well, everyone except the Buffalo front office, apparently. Believe it or not, he of the 2 touchdowns to 5 intercept ratio and 54% completion rate is depressingly by far the best quarterback on this team right now. Buffalo, that's why I've lost it at you.
Oh, I can't deal with this anymore. Guys, check out the complete rankings to see where they've fallen to and what sort of led to this mayhem.
Oh, God, it felt good to get that off my chest in a public forum. This is really therapeutic for me. Unfortunately, that is actually all about we have time for today. So if you liked what you heard or want to check out more of us, leave a like and subscribe. We're new still, so every small token of your support makes a huge difference. If you're viewing this on the Vault's Facebook feed, our YouTube channel should be linked in the comments below. If you're viewing this on our YouTube, all our socials, as well as those of our friends at the Vault, can be found in the description below. That's all from us. Until next time, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.